I showed up at my granddaughter's baptism and parked my Ford construction truck between rows of polished Teslas and luxury SUVs. Inside the cathedral, around 200 guests were gathering for a ceremony I had quietly paid for $31,000 for the venue, the reception, the flowers, even the gown in my granddaughter's arms. Before I could step fully through the doors, my son stopped me. His eyes dropped to my boots. "Dad, you don't fit in here. My partners are watching. It's better if you leave." At 68, I understood something with painful clarity. I wasn't family. I was funding. So I turned around, walked back to my truck, and made one phone call that unraveled their perfect day. By the next morning, my phone was flooded with missed calls. "Welcome to Family Revenge Stories, and thank you for spending your time here. Before we go deeper, leave a comment telling me where you're listening from and how old you are today. I want to know who's sitting on the other side of this screen. We're building something meaningful together." Please note, this story contains some fictional elements added for storytelling and reflection. Any resemblance to real names or settings is purely coincidental, but the message behind it is meant to make you think. I arrived at my granddaughter's baptism wearing the best suit I owned, the one Virginia bought me 8 years ago at Nordstrom Rack during their summer clearance sale. Charcoal gray, single-breasted, nothing fancy. She'd smoothed down the lapels that day. In the dressing room, looked up at me with those eyes that could still make my heart skip, and said, "You look distinguished, Gordon." Distinguished. I tried to hold on to that word as I pulled my Ford construction pickup into the parking lot of the cathedral. The truck looked exactly like what it was, a working man's vehicle with the company logo painted across both doors in bold green letters. 42 years I'd been driving trucks with my name on them. Started with one beat-up Ford Ranger and a dream. Now I had 42 trucks, 60 employees, and contracts with 3 cities. Built it all with these hands calloused, scarred, and honest. I parked between a pearl-white Tesla and a black Range Rover that probably cost more than I paid my crew in a month. The cathedral rose up in front of me, all stone and stained glass, and the kind of quiet money that doesn't need to announce itself. Through the tall arched windows, I could see them 200 people in clothes I couldn't pronounce, the designers of mingling like they did this every weekend. I looked down at the gift on my passenger seat. A toy truck I'd carved from a single piece of maple in my workshop wheels that actually turned a tiny bed that tilted sanded so smooth it wouldn't give Selah a splinter. Took me 6 evenings after work. Brandon probably wouldn't even notice. The October air was crisp as I walked toward the entrance, the kind of Seattle morning where the sun breaks through the clouds just long enough to make you forget about 9 months of rain. I could hear voices inside, laughter, echoing off those vaulted ceilings. Smell of expensive perfume and fresh flowers drifting out through the propped open doors. I made it exactly 3 steps past the threshold before Brandon found me. "Dad." His voice cut through the pleasant hum of conversation. Not "Hey, Dad," or "Thanks for coming, Dad." Just that flat, tight acknowledgement. Dad. He was wearing a suit that fit him the way mine never would. Tailored European cut probably cost what I paid in property taxes. His hair was styled with that product that makes it look deliberately messy, like he'd just woken up on a yacht somewhere. My son, 38 years old, and in that moment looking at me like I was something he'd stepped in. "What are you doing here?" he said, quieter now, glancing over his shoulder at a group of men in expensive watches clustered near the baptismal font. The question hit me harder than it should have. "It's Selah's baptism, son. I'm her grandfather. I know that, but..." He looked down at my boots. Work boots. Clean ones, sure. I'd spent 20 minutes scrubbing them in the garage that morning. But still work boots. Steel-toed. Scuffed. The kind that had walked 1,000 construction sites. These are important people, Dad. My partners, investors. They're watching. Watching what? You don't. He stopped himself, jaw working like he was chewing on words too bitter to swallow. You don't fit in here. Please, just go home. We'll talk later. Behind him, through the crowd, I caught a glimpse of Miranda, my daughter-in-law, looking like something out of a magazine in a cream-colored dress, holding 6-month-old Selah in a baptism gown that I later found out cost $1,200. The gown I'd paid for, just like I'd paid for the cathedral rental, the reception at that hotel downtown, the photographer, the flowers that looked like they'd been arranged by someone with a degree in it. $31,000 total. Written the check without blinking because Brandon said it was important, said it was family. But I didn't fit in. Where am I supposed to stand? I heard myself ask. My voice sounded small in my own ears. Old. Brandon wouldn't meet my eyes. Dad, maybe it's better if you maybe we'll send you photos. Okay, we'll do dinner next week or something. The whispers started then, not loud. Just that particular frequency of gossip that wealthy people have, perfected the kind that sounds like normal conversation until you realize they're all looking at you. The man in the work truck, the one with calloused hands and a suit from 8 years ago, the one who smelled like sawdust no matter how hard he scrubbed. I wanted to push past him. Wanted to walk right up to that baptismal font and stand where grandfathers are supposed to stand, holding gifts they carved with their own hands. Wanted to tell every single person in that cathedral that I'd built a business from nothing, raised a son by myself after Virginia died, and earned every callus on these hands. But you don't make scenes in church. You don't embarrass your family even when they're embarrassing you. So I did what he asked. I looked past Brandon one last time. Through those doors, I could see the massive flower arrangements probably cost more than my monthly mortgage. Could see the champagne fountain being set up for the reception. Could see Miranda laughing with a woman in pearls, Selah peaceful in her arms, wearing that $1,200 gown I'd paid for. $22,946.37 actually. I'm good with numbers. Always have been. Every penny was sitting in my business account 3 weeks ago. Every penny was supposed to be for family. Thanks for the check, Dad, Brandon said quietly. Like that made it okay. Like money was the only thing I had to offer. I turned around and walked back through that lobby spine straight past whispers I pretended not to hear. Past Jason, one of Brandon's business partners, who gave me this little smirk like he'd won something. Past the pearl-white Tesla and the Range Rover back to my truck, with the company name painted on the side in letters that had never embarrassed me before. I got in, set the wooden truck on the passenger seat. It looked small there. Humble. Real. My hands gripped the steering wheel, knuckles going white. I didn't cry, haven't done that much since Virginia passed. Didn't curse, though Lord knows the words were there. Just sat in that parking lot for 1 full minute listening to my own breathing, feeling something shift inside my chest. Something cold and clear and absolutely certain. I'd spent 42 years building Ford construction from nothing. Raised Brandon alone after Virginia's heart gave out when he was 16. Put him through college. Paid for his wedding. Bought him his first car. Gave him every advantage I never had. And this was how he saw me. As an embarrassment. As something that didn't fit his new world of investors and champagne fountains and suits that cost more than my truck payment. By the time I pulled out of that parking lot, past the nice neighborhood with the manicured lawns and the coffee shops I couldn't afford, I'd made a decision. If Brandon wanted to treat me like an ATM machine with a pulse like a checkbook that came to life just long enough to fund his perfect life, then fine. This ATM was about to shut down. I looked down at the gift in my hands, a wooden toy truck I'd carved with my own calloused fingers. Then I looked at my son's face. He wasn't embarrassed for me. He was embarrassed of me, so I did what he asked. I turned around and walked back to my truck, and somewhere on that 20-minute drive home past the neighborhoods I'd never belonged to and the coffee shops I couldn't afford, I made a decision. Not out of anger, out of clarity. It was time Brandon learned what I'd known for 45 years. Respect isn't given. It's earned. My house felt exactly like every other Sunday afternoon, quiet, empty, and filled with Virginia's shadow. Her presence lived in every corner. The roses she'd planted outside the kitchen window, the reading chair by the fireplace where she used to grade papers, the photo on the mantel, her smile frozen at 47, forever young, forever reminding me to do what was right. I stood in the doorway of my office staring at that photograph. 8 years she'd been gone, and I still found myself talking to her. "Virginia, sweetheart," I said quietly, "I need your wisdom right now. What would you do?" The house didn't answer. It never did. But sometimes, if I listened close enough, I could almost hear her voice in the silence. "Do what's fair, Gordon. Not what's easy. Fair." That word had been rattling around my head since I left the cathedral. Brandon thought fair meant taking $31,000 and a front-row seat to his daughter's baptism, while I stood in the parking lot like hired help. I had a different definition. I crossed to the filing cabinet in the corner, old olive green, the same one I'd bought when I started Ford Construction 42 years ago. Virginia used to tease me about it. "Gordon, you're a millionaire, and you still use a cabinet from 1982. But I liked knowing where things were. Every contract, every lease, every piece of paper that mattered. I pulled open the second drawer and found the file labeled Brandon, Financial Documents. Inside was everything I needed to know about my son's life. The penthouse in Queen Anne title in my name purchased 6 years ago when he swore he'd turned a corner. The Audi lease $820 a month auto debit from my business account. The office building downtown, the one with his name on the glass door and my signature on the mortgage. I spread the papers across my desk and did the math in my head. Penthouse $4,000 a month. Car $820. Office rent $2,500. Utilities, insurance, the designer furniture Miranda insisted on. I owned it all. Every brick, every monthly payment, every illusion that Brandon had built his life on something real. "He thinks it's his," I muttered. "He actually thinks he earned this." The photo of Virginia seemed to look back at me. "What are you going to do about it, Gordon?" I picked up the phone. Denise Walker answered on the second ring. She'd been my accountant for 17 years, sharp, no-nonsense, and loyal to a fault. "Gordon, everything okay? Equise?" I said, "I need you to cancel a check." There was a pause. "Which one?" "The one for $18,500. Made out to the Grand Reserve Hotel for next Saturday." Another pause, longer this time. "Gordon, that's the reception for Selah's baptism. I know what it is. Are you sure about this?" I looked at Virginia's photo again. "Do what's fair." "I'm sure." I heard Denise exhale slowly. "All right. I'll put a stop payment on it first thing Monday morning." "One more thing," I said. I need you to freeze all the credit cards. Every card tied to Brandon's name. Silence. And Denise. Gordon, she said carefully. This is war. No, Denise, I replied. This is education. She didn't argue. She knew me well enough to understand that once I made a decision, it was made. I'll handle it tomorrow. Thank you. I hung up and sat there in the quiet office. The clock on the wall read 2:30 p.m. Somewhere across town, Brandon and Miranda were probably at brunch, celebrating with their well-dressed friends, talking about the beautiful ceremony they were planning, the one I wouldn't be attending, the one they were about to lose. I thought about Selah, 6 months old, innocent. She didn't ask for any of this, but maybe years from now she'd understand. Maybe she'd learn the same lesson I was about to teach her father. Respect isn't bought with money. It's built with honesty. The first phone call would come soon. I knew Brandon's rhythm. By Monday morning, when that check bounced and those cards declined, he'd be on the phone, furious, demanding answers. And I'd be ready. I leaned back in my chair and looked at the papers on my desk one more time. 42 years of hard work, 60 employees, 42 trucks rolling through 3 counties. I'd built Ford Construction from nothing, and I'd built it honest. Every contract signed, every worker paid on time, every promise kept. Brandon thought he could throw that away for appearances. He was wrong. The phone stayed silent for now. But I knew it wouldn't last. I didn't have to wait long for the answer. My phone started ringing around 4 o'clock. I was in the kitchen making a ham sandwich, white bread mustard, nothing fancy, when Brandon's name lit up the screen. I let it ring, set the phone face down on the counter, took a bite. It rang again. I chewed slowly. The bread was fresh from the bakery down on Pike Street, the kind Virginia used to buy every Sunday morning. She'd come home with a whole loaf still warm, and we'd sit at the same counter and talk about the week ahead. That was before the cancer, before the empty side of the bed. The phone buzzed with a voicemail notification. I took another bite. By the time I finished my sandwich, there were 5 missed calls. I wiped my hands on a dish towel and picked up the phone. 5 voicemails. All from Brandon. I pressed play on the first one. 4:17 p.m. Dad, what the hell did you just do? Do you have any idea what you just did? His voice was shaking. Not with sadness, with rage. Pure, unfiltered rage. I could almost see him pacing in that fancy office of his, the one with the glass walls and the skyline view I paid for. I deleted it. 4:23 p.m. The hotel just called. They said the check bounced. Bounced, Dad. Do you know how humiliating that is? Humiliating. That was a good word. I wondered if he knew what it felt like to stand in a parking lot while 200 people walked past you like you didn't exist. Delete. 4:31 p.m. Call me back, now. Delete. By 5:30, the anger had turned to desperation. 5:30 p.m. Dad, please. Everyone saw. Everyone. His voice cracked. For a second, I almost felt something. Almost. But then I remembered Selah's baptism gown, the one that cost $1,200. The cathedral with the stained glass and the marble floors. The 200 guests who mattered more than I did. Delete! The next 3 calls came rapid fire. Brandon's voice getting higher, more frantic. Talking about the caterer, the photographer, the florist. All of them calling, demanding payment. All of them threatening to cancel. I sat down at the kitchen table and listened to every single one. Didn't skip ahead. Didn't fast forward. Just listened. 6:45 p.m. New voice. Miranda. Mr. Ford, this is Miranda. We need to talk. This isn't fair to Selah. Her tone was polite, controlled, but I could hear the tension underneath. The careful way she said Mr. Ford instead of Dad or Gordon, like I was a business associate, a problem to be managed. She invoked Selah's name like a shield, like somehow this was about the baby and not about the $31,000 they'd spent without a second thought. I thought about Selah, 6 months old, innocent. She didn't deserve this, but she also deserved parents who understood the difference between earning something and expecting it. Delete! The calls kept coming. By 9 o'clock, there were 15 voicemails. I listened to all of them. Brandon's voice cycling through anger, desperation, bargaining. 9:20 p.m. I'll fix this. I'll pay you back. I promise. Just, please call the hotel. Please, Dad. Promises. Brandon had been making promises his whole life. Promised he'd finish college. Promised he'd pay back the money I loaned him for his first business. Promised he'd learned his lesson after the last 3 failed ventures. I was done with promises. Delete. The last call came just before midnight. 11:58 p.m. Miranda again. This time no politeness, no careful control. You've made your point, Gordon. We'll handle this ourselves. We don't need you. Gordon. Not Mr. Ford. Not Dad. Just Gordon. Cold. Formal. The kind of tone you use with strangers. We don't need you. That's what this had always been about. They didn't need me. They needed my money. My name on the lease. My signature on the checks. But me. The man who built Ford Construction from nothing. The man who still wore work boots and drove a truck with the company logo on the side. I was just a wallet with a pulse. I held the phone for a long moment staring at the list of voicemails. 22 in total. A whole evening of panic and desperation, all of it recorded in my hand. Then I swiped left. Deleted them. All of them. One by one. A flick of my thumb and they were gone. I set the phone face down on the nightstand and climbed into bed. Virginia's side was empty, same as it had been for 8 years. The sheets on her side were cold and flat, undisturbed. But tonight, for the first time in months, I didn't lie awake staring at the ceiling, talking to her pillow, asking her ghost if I'd done the right thing. I closed my eyes and slept straight through until 5 in the morning. Because deep down I knew, whatever came next, I'd made the right call. Sunday morning, 6 o'clock. I woke to the alarm like I had for 45 years before dawn, before the world got loud when it was just me and the quiet. Made coffee. Ate oatmeal with brown sugar and cinnamon the way Virginia used to make it. Read the paper front to back, even the parts I didn't care about. A normal Sunday morning, a normal routine. The kind of morning that reminded me why I'd built this life in the first place. No chaos. No surprises. Just the steady rhythm of a man who knew what mattered. By 10:30, I'd finished my coffee and folded the paper. That's when I heard the car pull up outside. Fast. Aggressive. Tires crunching on gravel. I knew who it was before the pounding started. Not a knock, a pounding. The kind that rattles the frame. I set my mug down and walked to the door. Through the frosted glass, I could see 2 silhouettes. One tall and broad-shouldered. One smaller, trying to hold the first one back. I opened the door. Brandon and Miranda stood on my porch, both of them looking like they hadn't slept all night. Brandon's shirt was wrinkled, untucked. Miranda's hair was pulled back in a ponytail, no makeup, her face pale and tight. Brandon pushed past me before I could say a word. not violent, but deliberate. The kind of push that said I'm done asking permission. "We need to talk," he said. "Right now." "Brandon, please." Miranda's voice was strained, her hand reaching for his arm. But he shook her off. I closed the door behind them and followed them into the living room. Brandon paced like a caged animal, his hands moving, his breath coming fast. Miranda stood by the doorway, arms crossed, watching me with something I couldn't quite read. "Stu, you humiliated us," Brandon said, his voice rising. "In front of 200 people. My business partners saw everything. Do you have any idea what you've done?" I sat down in my chair, the same one I'd sat in every evening for the last 8 years. The leather was worn smooth in places shaped to my body. I didn't hurry, didn't flinch. I know exactly what I did. "You need to fix this," Brandon said. "Call the hotel, pay them. This is insane." "I'm not fixing anything." Brandon stopped pacing, turned to face me. "What are you talking about?" I leaned back in my chair and looked at him. Really looked at him. 38 years old. My son. And in that moment I realized he had no idea how the world worked. "The apartment you're living in," I said. "Queen Anne, 3 bedrooms, view of the water, I own it. The deed's in my name." "Always has been." Brandon's face went white. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. "The Audi in the driveway." I continued. $820 a month. I've been paying that lease since day one. Miranda's expression shifted. Something flickered across her face, not surprise. Recognition. "On your office downtown," I said. "The building on 2nd Avenue with the fancy lobby and the view of Puget Sound, my building. I'm your landlord, and that lease terminates Monday morning." The silence in the room was suffocating. Brandon's hands were shaking. "You can't do this. You can't just—" "You have 30 days to move out of the apartment," I said. "I'll send the official notice by certified mail. But I'm telling you now, so there's no confusion. Dad, this is what happens." I interrupted. "When you treat people like they don't matter. When you spend $31,000 on a party and can't be bothered to save your father a seat." Brandon took a step toward me, his fists clenched. For a second, just a second, I thought he might actually do it. Might take a swing. I tensed, ready. "Don't," I said quietly. "Don't make that mistake." There was something in my voice, something that came from 45 years of waking up at 6 in the morning. 45 years of building something from nothing. 45 years of knowing when a man was about to cross a line he couldn't uncross. Brandon stopped. Miranda moved fast. She grabbed his arm, pulled him back. "Brandon, let's go. This isn't helping." "Get your hands off me." Brandon snapped, but he let her pull him toward the door. Miranda looked at me over her shoulder. Her eyes were hard, calculating. "This isn't over, Gordon. Not Dad. Not Mr. Ford. Gordon." They left. The door slammed behind them. I stood at the window and watched their car peel out of the driveway, tires squealing on asphalt. When their car disappeared at the end of the street, I stood at the window for a long time. Something was bothering me. The way Miranda had looked at me when I mentioned the apartment. The car, the office. It wasn't surprise on her face. It was recognition, like she already knew, but that didn't make sense. Unless, number one, I pushed the thought away. Miranda was a victim in this too, wasn't she? Just trying to hold her family together. I turned back to the kitchen, poured myself another cup of coffee, and tried to believe that, but I couldn't. Monday morning, 5:30. I drove into the Ford construction yard, just as the sun was cresting the Cascade Mountains to the east. The lot smelled like diesel fuel and fresh coffee. Gene Holloway always got there before me. Made a pot, had the trucks ready to roll. 45 years I'd been doing this. There are some routines you never break. Gene was checking tire pressure on truck 17 when I pulled in. He looked up, waved, wiped his hands on a rag. "Morning, boss," he called. "You all right? You look distracted." I climbed out of my truck, grabbed my thermos. "Family stuff, Gene. Nothing that affects the business. If you need anything..." "I know, thanks." Gene had been with me since the beginning. Watched me build Ford construction from one truck and a dream into 42 trucks and 3 counties. He'd seen me through Virginia's death, seen me show up every morning at 5:30 even when I didn't want to. If anyone understood loyalty, it was Gene. But this was something I had to handle alone. By 8:30, I was in the office reviewing invoices when my phone rang. Denise Walker. Her voice was tight. "Gordon, we've got a problem. Brandon showed up at First National the minute they opened at 8 o'clock. My stomach dropped. Denise explained fast. Brandon had walked in with paperwork, bank statements, old account numbers, documents I didn't even know he had copies of. He told Beverly Grant that you're 68 years old and experiencing cognitive decline," Denise said. "Confusion, disorientation. He said he needed access to your accounts to protect you." I gripped the phone harder. What did he try to do? Everything. Cash withdrawals. Add himself as an authorized user. Asked about power of attorney documents. Beverly shut it down immediately, but Gordon, this is escalating. Fast. I'm advising you to close those accounts today. This morning, I looked out the window at the trucks lined up in the yard. 42 trucks, 60 employees, $8.2 million worth of business built on trust and honesty. "I'm on my way," I said. 15 minutes later, I pulled into the First National parking lot. Denise was waiting by her car, arms crossed, her face grim. "Thank you for coming so quickly," she said. "Thank you for calling." Inside, Beverly Grant met us at her desk. She was in her 50s, professional calm, the kind of person who'd seen every scam and scheme in the book. She looked relieved to see me. "Mr. Ford," she said. "I'm so sorry about this morning. We followed every protocol." "You did the right thing," I said. "Now I need you to close every account with Brandon's name on it. Every account with any connection to him." Beverly nodded. "I'll need your signature on some forms." We spent the next hour going through paperwork. 3 checking accounts, 2 savings accounts, 1 money market account. Every single one closed. New accounts opened with new numbers, new passwords, new security questions. When I signed the last form, Beverly looked at me across the desk. "Oh, I'm Mr. Ford," she said carefully. "I've worked in banking for 26 years. You're sharper than half the 50-year-olds I deal with. Your son's claims are unfounded." "Good to know," I said. "I have a feeling I'm going to need to prove that." Beverly slid a business card across the desk. "If you need documentation, competency, evaluations, medical records, I can recommend some specialists." I pocketed the card. "Thank you." Outside, Denise walked me to my truck. "Gordon," she said. "I need to ask. How far do you think Brandon will take this?" I looked at her. Denise had been my accountant for 17 years. She'd seen every number, every transaction, every decision I'd made. She knew the business as well as I did. As far as he needs to, I said. He's desperate, and desperate people do desperate things. Denise nodded slowly. Be careful. If he's willing to lie to a bank, he's willing to lie to a court. I climbed into my truck, gripped the steering wheel. I know. I was halfway back to the yard when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I pulled over to the shoulder, left the engine running, and checked the voicemail. The voice that came through was smooth, professional, almost too calm. Mr. Ford, this is Dr. Gerald Stone. I specialize in elder care and cognitive health. Your family has expressed some concerns about your condition. I'll be stopping by your home soon to conduct an in-home assessment. This is purely precautionary, nothing to worry about. I look forward to meeting you. The line went dead. No callback number, no details. Just that calm, clinical voice. A doctor I'd never heard of making a house call I'd never requested. I sat there in my truck on the side of the road and realized Brandon wasn't giving up. He was just getting smarter. Wednesday morning. I was in the garage fixing a stuck hinge on the utility closet, the kind of small job you put off until you can't stand the noise anymore. The hinge had been squeaking for weeks, a high-pitched whine every time I opened the door. Virginia used to tease me about things like this. Gordon, you'll fix a broken transmission but ignore a squeaky door for 6 months. I was tightening the final screw when someone knocked on the front door. Not the kind of knock that waits to be refused. Definitive. Official. The kind of knock that changes your day. I set down my screwdriver and walked to the door. A young man stood on my porch, maybe 25, holding a clipboard. He looked uncomfortable, fresh-faced, probably his first month on the job. Are you Gordon Ford? I am. You've been served. He handed me an envelope and walked away before I could respond. Down the driveway. Into his car. Gone. I stood on the porch holding the envelope. It was thick, legal-sized, sealed with an official stamp. My name was typed on the front in all caps, Gordon Ford. I knew what it was before I opened it. Inside a lawsuit. Stamped, filed official. Brandon Ford versus Gordon Ford. The words hit me like punches. Elder abuse, mental incompetence, undue influence, financial exploitation. I sat down on the porch step and read the whole thing. Every page, every accusation, every carefully worded lie. Brandon claimed I was exhibiting signs of severe cognitive decline, that I was making irrational financial decisions, that I had severed family relationships without cause or explanation, that I was a danger to myself and others, a danger to myself. My own son had put that in writing. Brandon was asking the court to freeze my accounts, appoint him as my legal guardian, grant him full access to my finances and property, give him medical decision-making authority, the power to put me in a nursing home if he deemed it necessary. He wanted everything, and he was willing to destroy me to get it. I pulled out my phone and dialed. Stanley Chambers' office, the receptionist said. Tell him it's Gordon Ford. Tell him it's urgent. 20 minutes later, I was sitting across from Stanley in his downtown office. The place smelled like leather and old books, the kind of law office where deals got made and problems got solved. Stanley had been my lawyer for 30 years, seen me through Virginia's estate planning, through every contract and lease and business decision. If anyone could make sense of this mess, it was Stanley. He read the lawsuit in silence, his jaw tight. He was in his 60s now, graying at the temples, reading glasses perched on his nose. When he finished, he looked up. This is weak, Gordon. Legally speaking, it's garbage. But we still have to respond. Can he win? Stanley set the papers down. Based on what I'm seeing here, numbered, but courts take elder abuse claims seriously. The burden of proof is on Brandon, but we need to be proactive. We need documentation, proof that you're competent, medical records, cognitive assessments, character witnesses. I'm 68 years old, Stanley, not senile. There's a difference. I know that, Stanley said. The court needs to know that. I'll arrange for you to see Dr. Ellen Ashford tomorrow morning. She's a neuropsychologist, specializes in cognitive assessments for older adults. We'll prove you're as sharp as ever, and this case will die before it reaches trial. I stared at the lawsuit on his desk. The official stamp, the court seal, the signature at the bottom, Brandon J. Ford, petitioner. This is really happening, I said. My own son is trying to have me declared legally incompetent. Stanley put a hand on my shoulder. I'm afraid so, but Gordon, we're going to win this. And when we do, Brandon's going to wish he never filed. That night, I sat in my living room with the lawsuit spread out on the coffee table like evidence of my own son's betrayal. Virginia's photo watched me from the mantel. That smile, that faith that people were fundamentally good. He's trying to take everything, sweetheart, I said to the empty room. Not just the money, my dignity, my freedom, everything we built. The house was so quiet, and then I heard it. A car outside, slowing down. I walked to the window. A black sedan was idling at the curb, tinted windows, engine running, someone inside watching my house. The street was empty except for that car. No other traffic, no neighbors outside. Just me and whoever was in that sedan. My hand went to my phone, ready to call the police. The car sat there for 30 seconds. Engine humming. Exhaust drifting in the cold night air. Then it drove away. Slowly, deliberately. Like whoever was inside wanted me to know they'd been there. I stood at that window long after it disappeared, my heart pounding. And when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number, I already knew it wouldn't be good. The message was short. Your son owes money, a lot of it. Time to pay up. I stared at those words until the screen went black. Thursday morning, 9:30. I sat in a psychiatrist's office, proving I wasn't losing my mind. At 68, after 45 years of running a successful business, I was taking tests designed for people with dementia. Stanley had driven me here, was sitting in the waiting room with outdated magazines and terrible coffee. And I was in here drawing clocks and counting backward because my son wanted to steal everything I'd built. The waiting room had been the worst part. Fluorescent lights humming overhead, plastic chairs that squeaked when you shifted your weight, a fake fern in the corner that probably hadn't been dusted in months, a stack of forms on a clipboard handed to me by a receptionist who barely looked up from her computer. Medical history, none. Current medications, none. Reason for visit, cognitive competency assessment for legal purposes. I'd filled it out in block letters, my handwriting steady. No tremors, no crossed-out words. Proof number 1. Across from me, an elderly woman sat with her daughter, both of them quiet. The woman stared at the wall, her expression vacant. Her daughter held her hand. That could have been me and Brandon if things were different. If Brandon actually cared. Dr. Ellen Ashford called me in at 9:45. She was in her 50s, professional, but warm, with kind eyes that had probably seen every type of family crisis imaginable. Her office was clean, organized, diplomas on the wall, a shelf of medical texts, a window overlooking downtown Seattle. "Ma, Mr. Ford," she said, shaking my hand. Her grip was firm. "I understand you need a cognitive competency evaluation. My son is trying to have me declared incompetent so he can access my money and property. She nodded, unsurprised. Probably heard this story 100 times. Then let's make it very clear that you're not. This will take about 2 hours. The test started simple. Count backward from 100 by sevens. Dr. Ashford said, pen poised over her notepad. I did. 100. 93. 86. 79. All the way to 0. No hesitation. No mistakes. I'd been doing calculations in my head for 45 years, payroll invoices, profit margins. This was nothing. A draw clock showing 3:15. I drew it. Perfect circle. All 12 numbers in the right positions. Hands at the right angles. Hour hand between 3 and 4-minute hand on 3. She nodded, made a note. Call and name the last 5 presidents in reverse order. Easy. I rattled them off without thinking. Tell me about your business. This was where I could show her. I explained Ford Construction. 42 trucks running routes through 3 counties. 60 employees, most of them with me for over a decade. Annual revenue in the 8-figure range. Safety protocols. Insurance requirements. The hydraulic leak on truck 17 last week, and why I'd pulled it off the schedule until it was fixed. Because safety mattered more than keeping a truck on the road. Dr. Ashford typed notes, nodding. Executive function is completely intact. Decision-making is sound. Now tell me about the situation with your son. I explained it all. The baptism. Standing in the parking lot while 200 guests walked past me. The humiliation. The canceled check. The frozen accounts. The lawsuit claiming I was senile and dangerous to myself. Some people would call that retaliation, Dr. Ashford said carefully. How would you respond? I thought about that. I'd call it education. My son needed to learn that respect can't be bought, that actions have consequences, that you can't treat people like they don't matter and expect them to keep funding your life. Do you love your son? My voice caught. Just a little. I looked at the window at the skyline beyond. More than anything, that's why I'm doing this. Because loving someone sometimes means letting them fall, letting them hit bottom so they can learn to climb back up on their own. Dr. Ashford watched me carefully. Do you have any intention of harming yourself or others? No, ma'am. I intend to live long enough to see my granddaughter grow up with the right values, to know that integrity matters. That family isn't about money. It's about respect and honesty and showing up when it counts. She typed for a few more minutes, then signed a form and had it notarized right there in her office by her assistant. Mr. Ford, she said, handing it to me. You're sharper than most 40-year-olds I evaluate. Your memory is excellent. Your reasoning is sound. Your judgment is appropriate. There is absolutely no evidence of cognitive decline, dementia, or impaired decision-making capacity. None. I held the certificate official, dated, notarized. Physical proof that I wasn't what Brandon claimed I was. Keep that safe, Mr. Ford, she said. I have a feeling you're going to need it. Stanley photographed the certificate with his phone, sent copies to himself and Denise. If Brandon tries anything else, he said as we walked to the elevator, we've got proof that his claims are fraudulent. This case won't even make it to trial. We walked to my truck in the parking garage. The concrete pillars cast long shadows. Our footsteps echoed. When I unlocked the door, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Voicemail. I almost didn't check it. Almost just deleted it. But something made me press play. I put it on speaker. The voice that came through was cold. Professional. Eastern European accent, maybe Russian. the kind of voice that didn't waste words. "Mr. Ford, my name is Nikolai Petrov. Your son Brandon owes me $127,000. Gambling debts, sports betting, he cannot pay. But you can. I'll be in touch." The message ended. Stanley's face went white. "Gordon, who the hell was that?" I didn't answer right away. I was too busy realizing that Brandon's problems and mine were much bigger than a lawsuit or frozen credit cards. Someone dangerous was involved now. Someone who knew my name, my phone number, probably my address, and they wanted $127,000. Friday evening, 8 o'clock. I just finished dinner, leftover meatloaf and green beans, eaten standing at the kitchen counter like I'd done since Virginia died. No plates on the table anymore. No conversation. Just me and the quiet hum of the refrigerator. I was rinsing my fork when someone knocked on the door. It wasn't the kind of knock that waited to be refused. It wasn't aggressive, just confident. The knock of someone who knew you'd answer because they weren't going to leave. I wiped my hands on a dish towel and checked the peephole. A man stood on my porch, in an expensive coat cashmere, maybe 50 years old, graying at the temples. Behind him at the curb, a black SUV with tinted windows, engine running, 2 men inside. One of them was watching the house through the windshield. I opened the door carefully, kept my hand on the frame. "Can I help you?" The man smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. "Mr. Ford, I'm Nikolai Petrov. We spoke on the phone. We need to talk about Brandon." Nikolai stepped forward, not pushing the door, just assuming entry. The kind of man who didn't ask permission because he'd never been told no. "May I come in?" I held the door open, kept my exit clear, kept myself positioned near the threshold, and stepped aside. Nikolai walked in like he owned the place. Looked around my living room with the practiced eye of someone appraising value. Took in Virginia's photo on the mantel, the worn furniture, the bookshelf with construction manuals. Noted everything. Filed it away. The 2 men climbed out of the SUV and positioned themselves where they could see the front door clearly. Not blocking it, just watching. A message sent. A silent threat. Nikolai sat down on my couch without being invited. Spread his arms across the back like he was settling in for the evening. "Nice house," he said. "Modest. I respect that. A man who builds everything with his own hands." I stayed standing. "What's this about?" Nikolai tilted his head, studying me. "Your son owes me money. Started at $95,000 6 months ago. He came to me after the casinos cut him off. After his credit cards maxed out. Said he had a sure thing, a system." He smiled without humor. 20% interest, monthly compounding. Right now, the debt is $127,000 and growing. My stomach dropped. I knew Brandon had problems. The bankruptcy 3 years ago. The failed business ventures. But not this. Not this scale. Mostly online poker. Nikolai continued, his accent thicker, now Eastern European. "High-stakes tables, sports betting. Seattle Seahawks games, he lost $12,000 on a single game last November. Portland Trail Blazers. Your son has a problem, Mr. Ford. An expensive one. And he doesn't have the discipline to stop." "Brandon's debt is Brandon's problem," I said. "Not mine." Nikolai's smile vanished instantly. He stood up, and suddenly the room felt smaller. He wasn't a big man, maybe 5'10" average build, but there was something in the way he moved, something that said he'd done things, seen things. "Ah, that's where you're wrong." He stepped closer. I held my ground, but my heart was pounding. The 2 men outside shifted position, still watching. I've researched you, Nikolai said. Very thoroughly. 8.2 million in assets. Ford Construction, a nice business. 42 trucks, 60 employees, contracts with 3 cities. Annual revenue north of 4 million. You built it from nothing, didn't you? Started with 1 truck in 1979. Grew it year by year. He knew too much. Way too much. And Brandon, Nikolai continued. Brandon built nothing. So when I look at his assets, the apartment in Queen Anne, the Audi, the office downtown, I see something interesting. They're actually your assets, aren't they? Your name on the deeds. Your money paying the bills. I said nothing. Nikolai leaned in close enough that I could smell his cologne, expensive, subtle. Smart men protect their families, Mr. Ford. Your granddaughter, Selah, beautiful child. 6 months old now, isn't she? I saw her picture on Brandon's desk. Blonde hair, blue eyes, just like her grandmother. My blood ran cold. Are you threatening me? Nikolai pulled out a business card, set it on the coffee table between us. I'm having a conversation. Fathers and sons. Family obligations. Brandon can't pay, but you can. 48 hours, Mr. Ford. Think about it. Think about Selah. Think about what's important. He walked to the door, paused with his hand on the frame, looked at the roses outside the kitchen window. Those roses in your backyard, he said. Your wife planted them, didn't she? Before she passed 8 years ago. I read her obituary. Breast cancer, very sad. She was a teacher, wasn't she? I couldn't speak. He'd been in my yard. He knew about Virginia. He'd researched everything. Beautiful flowers, Nikolai said softly. It would be unfortunate if something happened to them. If someone, I don't know, pulled them out. Destroyed something she planted. Something you've been caring for all these years. He looked at me one more time. 48 hours, Mr. Ford. He left. Climbed into the SUV with the 2 men. The engine purred to life. They drove away slowly, deliberately. No rush. Like they had all the time in the world. I stood in my living room long after they were gone, staring at the business card on the coffee table. Nikolai Petrov, Private Lending Services. Private lending. That's what they called it now. My hands were shaking. Not from fear, though there was fear real and cold in my chest, but from rage. Brandon had brought these people to my door, had given them my name, my address, my granddaughter's name, had told them about Virginia, about the roses. I picked up my phone and dialed. Jean Holloway. Jean, I need you to do something for me. Tomorrow morning, first thing. Security cameras. Front door, back door, garage, every entry point. The whole property. Jean heard something in my voice. Boss, what's going on? I'll explain later, just tomorrow morning, please. You got it, boss. I hung up and looked at Virginia's photo on the mantel. That smile. That belief that people were fundamentally good. I don't know what to do anymore, sweetheart, I said to her smile. He's brought dangerous people into our lives, into Selah's life. And they know about you, about your roses. She didn't answer. She never did anymore. But I knew what she'd say. Protect the family. Do what's right. Don't let fear make your decisions. Saturday morning, 6 o'clock. Jean Holloway pulled into my driveway with a cardboard box full of security cameras and questions I didn't want to answer. I met him in the garage tools already laid out on the workbench. Thanks for coming, Jean. He set the box down, looked at me with those sharp eyes that missed nothing. 40 years in construction, Gene could read people as well as blueprints. "Boss, who are we keeping out?" "People I'd rather not explain." Gene studied me for a long moment, saw the tension in my shoulders, the way my jaw was clenched. "This about Brandon?" I nodded. "My family's complicated," Gene said quietly. "But you're doing the right thing. Whatever it is, we spent 5 hours installing 6 cameras. Front door, back door, garage, side gate. 2 covering the driveway approach and street view. Gene worked methodically without asking more questions. Just handed me tools when I needed them. Ran wire through the crawl space mounted brackets with the precision of someone who'd built things all his life. By 11 o'clock, it was done. Gene showed me how to check the feeds on my phone, 6 live views, displayed in a grid, motion alerts, cloud backup, night vision. "Nah, you're all set, boss," he said, wiping his hands on a rag. "Anything moves within 50 feet of this house, you'll know about it. Recording starts automatically, stores for 30 days. After Gene left, I tested every camera on my phone, walked the perimeter, watched myself on the screen. All working, all recording. It felt like preparation for war. Noon. I drove to the Seattle Police Department East Precinct, a squat brick building off Madison Street. Asked for Detective Monica Fletcher Robbery Extortion Unit. The desk sergeant made a call. "Have a seat, she'll be with you." I waited 20 minutes in a plastic chair that squeaked every time I shifted my weight, watching officers come and go. Paperwork. Phone calls. The machinery of justice grinding slowly. Finally, Fletcher appeared, a woman in her early 40s. Sharp eyes, professional-bearing wedding ring on her left hand. "Mr. Ford, come with me." In a private room with a table and 2 chairs, I explained everything. Nikolai Petrov. The loan shark operation. Brandon's gambling debts, 95,000, growing to 127,000. The threats. The 48-hour deadline now down to 36 hours. I showed her the business card. Nikolai Petrov, Private Lending Services. Fletcher took notes in a small notebook. "Mr. Ford, I appreciate you coming forward. These operations thrive on silence. But without direct recorded threats of violence, our hands are limited." He mentioned my granddaughter by name. "She's 6 months old." Fletcher's expression softened slightly. "That's intimidation, yes. We can open a file, but loan shark operations are difficult to prosecute. These people are careful. They use language that's threatening without being explicit. It would be unfortunate if—" "You understand," frustration burned in my chest. "So there's nothing you can do." "I'm not saying that. I'm opening a case file right now. If Petrov contacts you again, calls, texts, visits, record it. Document everything, exact words, times, dates. Then we can act. We can get a restraining order, build a case for extortion. But we need evidence." I left the police station and drove home, my jaw-tight hands gripping the wheel. 3:45 in the afternoon. My phone rang. Brandon. I hesitated, staring at his name on the screen, then answered. Brandon's voice came through, shaking, barely controlled background noise like he was outside somewhere. Traffic. Wind. "They destroyed a car." "Slow down. What are you talking about?" "I borrowed a Honda from my neighbor Jerry 3 houses down." "I don't have a car anymore, you took it. Remember, Nikolai's people found it parked on the street. Smashed all 4 windows. Slashed the tires, spray-painted the hood. I pulled over to the shoulder of Highway 99, hazard lights flashing." "What did they spray paint?" "Time's up," in red letters. Huge. Dripping down the sides. Everyone in the neighborhood saw it. Jerry's freaking out. He wants to call the cops, but I told him I can't. Silence. Brandon's voice cracked. Dad, they know where Miranda works. The office on 2nd Avenue. They know what time Sela gets dropped off at daycare 8:30 every morning. They said her name to me, Sela. They described what she was wearing yesterday. They know my daughter's schedule. My heart stopped. My hands went numb. Brandon was crying now, voice breaking. $127,000. You have that money, Dad. You could pay it. Just pay them and this will be over. Please. I'm begging you. Oh, if I pay once, they'll come back forever. That's how these people work, Brandon. Then what am I supposed to do? Call the police. Tell them about Nikolai. Get protection. I can't. These people have connections everywhere. Even in jail, they can get to people. And Miranda, she doesn't know. She doesn't know about any of this. If I tell her, then I guess you need to figure it out yourself, I said. I'm not paying your gambling debts. I hung up. My hands were shaking. I sat in my truck on the side of Highway 99, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles went white. Brandon's voice kept echoing. They know Sela's schedule. They described what she was wearing. I thought about Nikolai's smile, about the 2 men standing at my door, about the roses in my backyard that Virginia had planted 20 years ago, the summer before she got sick. And I thought about something Stanley once told me when I was deciding whether to expand the business in 2005. The hardest decisions are the ones where both choices hurt. If I paid Nikolai, I'd be a target forever. They'd know I could be pressured. They'd come back for more, and more, until there was nothing left. If I didn't pay, what happened to Sela? What happened to Miranda? What happened to a 6-month-old girl whose father made terrible choices? I started the engine and drove. Not home. To the construction yard. I needed to be around the trucks, the tools, the smell of diesel and oil and honest work. The things that made sense. Because nothing about this situation made sense anymore. Sunday morning, 6 hours before Nikolai's deadline. I sat in the Ford construction office surrounded by the smell of coffee diesel fuel and 45 years of honest work. I hadn't slept, couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Sela's face, heard Nikolai's voice, felt the weight of $127,000 crushing my chest. Jean found me there at dawn, still wearing yesterday's clothes, surrounded by old files I'd been pulling since midnight. Empty coffee cups lined the desk. My eyes burned from reading in bad light. Boss, you've been here all night. Couldn't sleep. Nikolai's deadline is noon. 6 hours left. Jean looked at the files scattered across my desk, the open cabinets, the boxes pulled from storage. What are you looking for? I don't know. Answers, maybe. Something I missed. Some way out of this that doesn't end with Sela in danger. I'd been digging through the old archives boxes of records from when Brandon worked briefly for Ford Construction 5 years ago. Summer of 2019. I'd hired him thinking maybe he just needed structure, needed to see what real work looked like. 3 months, that's all he lasted. Showed up late, left early, couldn't follow simple safety protocols. Jean had to let him go. I found a cardboard box deep in storage pushed behind newer files covered in dust labeled B. Ford. Personal 2019 to 2020 in Brandon's handwriting. Inside, printed emails, financial documents, bank statements, things Brandon had left behind when he stormed out after Jean fired him. I started reading, and my world fell apart. Email 1, 8 months ago. From Miranda Ford to Brandon Ford, subject resituation. We can't let your father know about the gambling losses. If he finds out, he'll cut us off completely. We need to be more careful. Delete this after you read it." My hands started shaking. She knew. 8 months ago, she already knew. Email 2, 6 months ago. From Miranda Ford to Brandon Ford. Subject solution. I've set up 3 LLCs under different names. MBF, Consulting Cascade Holdings, Pacific Ventures. We can run transactions through these to hide the money trail. I know how to structure it so it looks legitimate. My law firm does this for clients all the time. Trust me, I felt sick. Sat down hard in my desk chair. She wasn't just covering for Brandon. She was orchestrating it. Money laundering, shell companies, professional-level fraud. This wasn't a wife standing by her husband. This was a lawyer executing a plan. Email 3. 3 months ago. From Brandon Ford to Miranda Ford. The debt's up to $127,000 now. Nikolai wants payment by end of month. What do? I'm freaking out. Miranda's response: "Don't panic. I'm working on something. Worst case scenario, we can file a petition to have your father declared incompetent. I can draft the papers. It's not much different from the guardianship cases I've handled at the firm. If we can prove cognitive decline, we get conservatorship and access to everything. His business, his accounts, all of it. This could actually solve all our problems." I stared at the screen, couldn't breathe. The lawsuit, the incompetency claims. The doctor visits Brandon tried to arrange. It was all her. Jean walked in, saw my face. "Boss, what did you find?" My voice came out hollow. It wasn't just Brandon. Miranda knew from the beginning. She helped him hide it. The shell companies, the money laundering, and the lawsuit, the incompetency claims. I looked up at Jean, and he saw something in my eyes that made him step back. That was her idea. "Jesus," Jean whispered. "She's a lawyer," I said. She knew exactly what she was doing. This wasn't just Brandon being stupid and desperate. This was calculated, planned. She saw an opportunity to get control of everything I've built, and she took it. I pulled out my phone with shaking hands, dialed Stanley Chambers. "Stanley, I found something. Emails, evidence. Miranda was involved from the start. She's been planning this for months. Gordon, you need to bring those to me, right now. Monday morning, first thing. I'll bring everything." I hung up. Looked at the clock on the wall, 11:20 a.m. 40 minutes until Nikolai's deadline. My phone rang, unknown number. I knew who it was. I answered. "Petrov." "Mr. Ford, time is almost up. Do you have my money?" My voice was steady despite the rage burning in my chest. "I'm not paying." A pause. Then, "That is unfortunate. For your family." Click. The call ended. I sat in silence for 10 seconds staring at the phone. Then it buzzed. A text message. Unknown number. I opened it. A photo. Miranda's car in the parking lot of her law firm downtown. Silver Lexus. I recognized the license plate. Selah's car seat visible through the tinted rear window. Pink and white pattern, the one Miranda had spent $200 on because it matched the nursery. Unmistakable. The caption underneath, "Your family is beautiful." I shot out of my chair and was running before I realized what I was doing. "Jean, lock up!" I shouted over my shoulder. "Boss, where are you going?" To get my granddaughter somewhere safe, I didn't wait for his answer. Didn't grab the emails. Didn't think about anything except that photo, that car seat, the 6-month-old girl who'd done nothing wrong except be born into this mess. I broke every traffic law on the 20-minute drive from the construction yard to downtown Seattle, ran red lights, passed on the shoulder. Didn't care if I got pulled over, and the whole way there one thought screamed in my head. I'd been worried about Brandon, about Nikolai, about the money, the threats, the lawsuit, but the real danger had been sitting at my dinner table 3 days ago, looking at me with those calm eyes, planning to steal everything. Miranda, my son's wife, the woman I'd trusted to protect my granddaughter. She'd been orchestrating this from the beginning, and I'd been too blind to see it. Are you still here? This part shocked me to my core. What about you? Are you as shocked as I was? Drop a comment and let me know your thoughts right now. And please note, the following story contains some fictionalized elements that may not be entirely real. If you'd rather not continue, feel free to stop the video here. It took me 9 minutes to drive from the construction yard to Miranda's law firm. Normally 15. Red lights didn't matter. Speed limits didn't matter. The only thing that mattered was the photo on my phone, Selah's car seat, visible through the window proof that Nikolai's people were watching, maybe still watching. 12:15. I screeched into the parking lot of Pemberton and Associates downtown Seattle, tires squealing. Saw Miranda leaving the building in a charcoal suit, professional and put-together briefcase in one hand, Selah's carrier in the other. She looked like she was heading to lunch, like everything was normal. Miranda. She turned, saw me, her face immediately guarded. Professional mask sliding into place. Gordon, what are you doing? I was out of breath, heart pounding. Get in my truck, right now. What number 1? I need to get home. We don't... I pulled out my phone, shoved it at her, showed her the photo. Nikolai's people took this 10 minutes ago. They're watching you. They know where you are. They know what car you drive. They know where you park. Miranda's face went white. All the professional composure drained away in an instant. She looked at her silver Lexus parked 3 spaces away, then back at the photo. Her hands started shaking. Oh my God! Get in my truck, I said. Now. We're going somewhere safe. This time, Miranda didn't argue. She walked quickly toward my Ford pickup, heels clicking on pavement, looking over her shoulder at the parking lot, like someone might jump out at any second. I took Selah's carrier from her trembling hands, strapped it carefully into the back seat. I'd installed the base months ago. Sometimes I picked up Selah when Miranda worked late and Brandon couldn't be bothered. The pink and white pattern was cheerful, innocent. Everything this situation wasn't. Miranda climbed into the passenger seat, silent, staring straight ahead, hands clasped in her lap. The drive to my house took 15 minutes through midday traffic. Neither of us spoke. The silence was heavy, suffocating. Miranda kept checking the side mirror like she expected to see a black SUV following us. Selah slept soundly the whole way, tiny fist curled beside her face, completely unaware that her world was falling apart. I pulled into my driveway. Jean's cameras were visible at every corner of the house, small black domes that said someone's watching now. Inside, Miranda set her briefcase down by the door, like she might need to grab it and run. She sank onto the couch, shoulders slumped, professional facade completely gone. I carried Selah's carrier into the living room, set it gently on the floor near the coffee table where I could see her. Then I stood across from Miranda and pulled folded papers from my jacket pocket. The emails. Printed this morning at the construction yard office. I pushed them across the coffee table without a word. Miranda looked down, saw her own email address in the headers. Her name. Her words. All of it right there in black and white. She picked them up with shaking hands. Read. Her face crumbled like paper in a fire. The silence stretched 30 seconds that felt like hours. The clock on the wall ticked. Selah made a small sound in her sleep. Miranda's breathing got faster, more shallow. "Where did you find these?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "Brandon's old files, in storage at the construction yard, from when he worked there 5 years ago. He left a box behind when Jean fired him. I can explain. You helped him hide the gambling debt." My voice was ice, every word sharp. "You created shell companies, MBF Consulting, Cascade Holdings, Pacific Ventures. You laundered money through them. Professional-level fraud. And you—" My voice broke with rage. "You suggested having me declared incompetent. That was your idea. The whole lawsuit. The doctor visits. All of it." Tears started falling, smudging her mascara. "I was trying to protect my family. By stealing from me. By keeping Brandon from doing something worse." She looked up, desperate mascara running down her cheeks. "You don't understand. When the debt got too high, Nikolai started making threats. Real threats. He knew where we lived, where Selah went to daycare. I thought if we could access some money, just enough to pay him off, Brandon would stop gambling, get help, go to therapy. I thought I could fix this. I thought, you thought you could steal from me to enable your husband's addiction." Miranda covered her face with her hands, sobbing. Her shoulders shook. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't know what else to do." Selah stirred in her carrier, making small noises, sensing her mother's distress, even in sleep. Miranda was at her side instantly, muscle memory lifting her with practiced hands, rocking gently. The crying stopped. Professional composure gone. Just a mother now. I watched. Despite everything, the lies, the betrayal, the emails, I saw the genuine love there. The way she held Selah. The way she whispered soft reassurances. The way her whole body relaxed when the baby settled. "How long have you known?" My voice softened despite myself. "About the gambling," Miranda still holding Selah against her shoulder. 10 months. About the debt, 8 months. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I thought we could handle it ourselves. I thought Brandon would stop. That I could save him. That we could fix this before you ever had to know." Her voice cracked. "I thought I was protecting everyone." Selah settled on Miranda's shoulder, one tiny hand gripping her mother's collar. "You can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved," I said quietly. Miranda held Selah close, rocking slowly back and forth. The baby had calmed completely, making those soft, cooing sounds children make when they feel safe. When the world makes sense. And I saw something in Miranda's eyes I hadn't expected, not guilt about the money, not fear about the consequences, but real horror. The pure primal fear of a mother who knows danger is close. "Gordon," she said, voice shaking. "Brandon hasn't answered his phone since yesterday afternoon. I've called him 14 times. It goes straight to voicemail every single time." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" "He wasn't at the apartment. I went there this morning before work. His stuff is there, clothes, wallet, keys to my car, but he's gone. He just vanished, like he never came home yesterday." The phone in my pocket buzzed. Text message, unknown number. I pulled it out already, knowing what I'd find. An address. Industrial District, South Seattle, near the rail yard. The bad part of town where nobody asked questions. And below it, "Your son is with us. You have what we want. Come alone. No police. Or it will be worse for Brandon." I looked at Miranda still holding Selah, looked at my granddaughter's innocent face, at the way Miranda's hands trembled even as she held her daughter close. And I realized Nikolai had just raised the stakes beyond anything I could have imagined. Brandon wasn't just in debt anymore. He was leverage. I handed Selah back to Miranda carefully, like she was made of glass. Stay here. Lock the doors. Deadbolt chain everything. Don't open the door for anyone except me. Understand? Miranda's eyes widened. Gordon, what are you going to do? What I have to do? I grabbed my truck keys. She caught my arm. You can't go there alone. You don't know what they'll... I pulled my arm free gently but firmly. He's my son, and I walked out before she could argue. In the truck driving south toward the address. I pulled out my phone, dialed Stanley Chambers while driving. Stanley answered on the second ring. Gordon, what's going on? They say they have Brandon, or they say they do. Sent me an address. Stanley's voice went sharp. Gordon, do not go there alone. This is exactly what they want. What choice do I have? Let me call Detective Fletcher. We can arrange. There's no time, Stanley. They said come now. Gordon, think about this. Why would Nikolai tell you where he is? Why give you an address? It hit me. I slowed down. It's a trap. Exactly. He wants you there. Alone, vulnerable. This is a setup. I pulled over to the shoulder hazard lights flashing. Then what do I do? You let professionals handle it. Fletcher's good at this. Silence. I looked at the text again. He's my son, Stanley. I can't just leave him there. Stanley's voice was frustrated. Brandon brought this on himself. You don't owe him. Yes, I do. I hung up, sat there for 30 seconds thinking. Texted the address to Stanley. If I don't text you back in 30 minutes, call the police. Stanley's reply was immediate. Gordon, please don't do this. I didn't answer. Put the truck in gear, drove. 20 minutes to reach the address, industrial district. Abandoned warehouses, rail yards, few people. Sunday afternoon, the area was nearly deserted. Found the address, an old warehouse, corrugated metal siding, broken windows. The black SUV parked outside the same one from Friday night at my door. I parked 15 meters away, sat in the truck. Checked the time, 1:47 p.m. Phone rang. Nikolai, I answered. I'm here. I see you, Mr. Ford, but I'm afraid there's been a change of plans. Where's Brandon? Somewhere safe, for now. But I've been thinking about our arrangement. What arrangement? I didn't agree to anything. Exactly. That's why we need a new understanding. Here are the new terms, $100,000. Cash. 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. I'll send you the location. You said Brandon was here. Chico, I said many things. The truth is, Mr. Ford, I needed you to understand how serious this is. You came here, alone, because you care about your son. That's good. It shows me you're reasonable. I realized Brandon was never here. This whole thing was to prove Nikolai could make me come. Now you know I'm serious, Nikolai continued. 10 o'clock tomorrow, cash, or I won't be responsible for what my associates do next. To who Brandon? Nikolai chuckled softly. Brandon is a small problem. I'm thinking about your daughter-in-law. Beautiful woman, lawyer, nice office with big windows on the 3rd floor. Very easy to watch. It would be a terrible shame if something happened. My blood ran cold. Tomorrow morning, Mr. Ford, be smart. Click. He hung up. I sat in the empty parking lot. Texted Stanley, I'm okay. He wasn't here. Just a bluff. Started the engine. Began driving away. 3 blocks from the warehouse, I checked the rearview mirror. A black sedan, 2 cars back, following. I turned right. The sedan turned right. Turned left. It followed. My heart pounded. They weren't even hiding it. They wanted me to know they were there. I drove toward the police station, East Precinct. The sedan followed all the way to the parking lot. I pulled in. The sedan slowed, then drove past. But the message was received. They could follow me anywhere, anytime. I sat in the police station parking lot for 20 minutes, engine running, hands shaking on the wheel. They'd followed me. Made sure I knew they were following. The message was clear, nowhere was safe. Not my house. Not Miranda's office. Not even here at a police station. They had eyes everywhere. I called Detective Fletcher, told her everything, the text, the warehouse Nikolai's call, the sedan following me. She listened, took notes, but I heard the helplessness in her voice. Without explicit threats of violence on tape, Mr. Ford, my hands are tied. But I'll increase patrols near your house. It wasn't enough. I knew it. She knew it. But it was all she could offer. When I drove home, checking mirrors constantly, my phone buzzed. Stanley, just got your text. Thank God you're okay. But Gordon, we need to talk. Tonight. About what happens next. I knew what happened next. 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, Nikolai wanted cash. And I had exactly 12 hours to figure out what the hell I was going to do. Detective Fletcher met me in the East Precinct parking lot at 6 that evening. She looked tired, like she'd been dealing with cases like mine all day. Cases where the law couldn't reach far enough to help. Stanley was already there, leaning against his sedan, briefcase in hand. And inside that briefcase, I knew were the emails. Miranda's emails. Evidence that would destroy what was left of my family. Mr. Ford. Fletcher said, I've read your report. This situation has escalated significantly. I was followed here this afternoon. They didn't even bother hiding anymore. I saw that sedan. We got the plate. Registered to a shell company. We're trying to trace it back to Petrov, but these people use a lot of layers. Stanley stepped forward with the briefcase. I brought the emails, the ones Gordon found. He handed them to Fletcher. She flipped through, her expression darkening. This is conspiracy to commit fraud. Money laundering through shell entities. If we prosecute this, Miranda Ford could lose her law license, face criminal charges. Right now, I don't care about charges, I said. I care about keeping Selah safe. I understand. That's why I have a proposal. But you're not going to like it. I'm listening, Fletcher explained. 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, Nikolai wants you to deliver cash. We want you to go. What? Stanley cut in. Monica, that's insane. Fletcher held up a hand. Hear me out. Mr. Ford goes wearing a wire. We'll position nearby undercover vehicles, plainclothes officers. The moment Petrov makes an explicit threat or accepts the money, we move. It's our best chance at an extortion charge. Stanley shook his head. This is dangerous. These are violent people. That's exactly why we need ironclad evidence. Right now, we've got intimidation, possible extortion, but nothing concrete enough for a warrant. We need Petrov on tape making threats. What about Brandon? I asked. Nikolai said he's holding him. We don't think he is. Brandon's phone last pinged near his apartment at 6:15 this morning. We think he's hiding somewhere. Scared maybe, but not being held. I processed this. Brandon wasn't in danger, just hiding. This is bait, Mr. Ford. Fletcher continued. Petrov wants you desperate enough to pay. Desperate enough to make mistakes. But if you're willing to wear a wire, we can turn this around. I looked at Stanley. "It's your call, Gordon," he said quietly. "But if you do this, you need to understand you're putting yourself at risk." I thought about Selah, about Miranda holding her the fear of a mother, about Virginia's roses that Nikolai had mentioned. "Okay, I'll do it." "Good, let's get you fitted." A tech young guy, early 30s name was Kyle, brought out the equipment. A small recording device taped to my chest under my shirt. The mic was so tiny I could barely see it. "This is simple," Fletcher said. "Just get him to say the amount. Get him to threaten you directly. We'll hear everything." We rehearsed. "You want 100,000. Is that a threat?" "What happens if I don't pay?" "Don't overthink it," Fletcher advised. "Be natural, even scared. He'll expect that." Prep finished at 8. "We'll send you the deployment plan tomorrow morning. 6 a.m. Be ready." "What about Miranda?" I asked. "The emails." Fletcher looked at Stanley, then back at me. "That's your decision. We can pursue charges or not. But for now, focus on Petrov." I drove home, the wire still taped to my chest. Arrived at 8:30. Miranda's car was still in the driveway. She hadn't left. Inside, Miranda sat on the couch. Selah slept in her carrier on the floor. Miranda stood. "Where have you been?" "Police station, setting up a plan." "What did the plan?" "Tomorrow morning I'm meeting Nikolai. But this time the police will be listening." Her face showed relief mixed with new horror. "You're wearing a wire, Gordon. It's the only way to end this. Get him on tape. Arrest him." "What if something goes wrong?" And then at least I tried. That night, I barely slept. Couldn't sleep. Miranda and Selah were in the living room. I lay in bed, the wire device on my nightstand, looking at Virginia's photo in moonlight through the window. "I hope I'm doing the right thing, sweetheart," I whispered. At 3 in the morning, my phone lit up. Text message. Unknown number. My heart stopped. I grabbed the phone. Change of plans. 6 a.m. At your house. Come alone. I stared at the message, mind racing. They weren't waiting until 10. They were coming now. In 3 hours. And there was no time to contact Fletcher. No time to set up surveillance. No time to prepare. I was wearing the wire, still recording, sitting on my nightstand. But that was all. That's all I had. I got out of bed, put the wire back on, taped it carefully to my chest, like Kyle had shown me. Checked my phone, 3:02 a.m. I had 2 hours and 58 minutes. I went downstairs, made a pot of coffee I wouldn't drink, and sat in the dark living room waiting. At 5:45, I heard them. 2 vehicles pulling up outside. I checked the security camera feed on my phone. Jean's cameras installed just yesterday, showing everything crystal clear. 1 black SUV, 1 gray sedan, 4 men climbing out. And I realized whatever happened in the next few minutes, it was all being recorded. Both by the wire and the cameras. They just walked into a trap they didn't know existed. At 5:45 in the morning, I watched through the security cameras as 4 men stepped out of 2 vehicles in my driveway. Nikolai Petrov in his expensive coat. The 2 men I recognized from Friday night, the ones who'd stood at my door like silent threats. And a 4th man I didn't know, younger, nervous-looking. I checked the wire device taped to my chest one last time. The tiny red light blinked. Recording. Everything was being recorded. But the police weren't here. Wouldn't get here in time. This was happening now. And I was alone. I ran upstairs, quietly knocked on the living room door. "Miranda, wake up." The door cracked open. Miranda in pajamas, fear in her eyes. "What's wrong?" "They're here. Nikolai and 3 others. Take Selah into the bathroom. Lock the door. Call 911. Don't come out until I tell you." Understand. Gordon, what about you? I'll be fine. I'm wearing the wire. Everything's being recorded. Go. Miranda lifted Selah from her carrier, the baby still sleeping. I heard the bathroom door lock. Heard Miranda's voice on the phone, 911, I need police. I went back downstairs. Heavy pounding on the door, harder than before, aggressive. Nikolai's voice muffled through the door. Mr. Ford, open the door. We came to talk. I stood in the entryway, didn't open it yet. Checked my phone wire recording cameras showing all 4 men on the porch. I spoke through the closed door. It's 6 in the morning, Nikolai. Talk about what? About the money you owe me. I don't owe you anything. Your son owes. And in my business, family debt is family debt. So you owe me $100,000. I spoke toward the wire mic, making sure it caught everything. I'm not paying. Then we have a problem. Multiple footsteps. They were moving around the porch. One of Nikolai's men, boss cameras, above the door. Nikolai cursed in Russian, his voice louder now, angrier. Mr. Ford, open this door, or we'll open it for you. I texted Detective Fletcher. They're here now, at my house. 4 men, send backup. Fletcher's reply, immediate, on our way. 4 minutes, keep stalling. I shouted through the door. You threatening me in front of cameras! Cameras can be destroyed, Mr. Ford. Something heavy hit the door. They were trying to break in. I backed away from the door. Sudden twist, another vehicle pulled in. I checked the cameras. Brandon's Audi pulling into the driveway behind the SUV. My stomach dropped. No, 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 no. Brandon got out. The passenger door opened. A man in a white coat, glasses. Dr. Gerald Stone. The doctor from the voicemail. Nikolai turned, saw them. Who the hell are you? Brandon voice loud, trying to sound confident. I'm his son. I need to get inside. You owe me money. I know. I'm handling that. But my father needs medical attention first. Dr. Stone stepped forward. I'm Dr. Gerald Stone. I'm here to evaluate Mr. Ford for cognitive decline. This is a medical emergency. I don't care about your medical sirens. Distant but getting closer. Nikolai's face changed instantly. This is a setup. He barked at his men. Back to the cars. Now. They ran toward the SUV. Brandon and Dr. Stone froze, realizing what was happening. 4 police cars screamed into the street, blocking both exits. Officers poured out. Police, everyone on the ground, hands behind your head. Through the window, I watched. Nikolai and his 3 men tried to run, but were tackled by officers. Brandon stood frozen, hands raised. Dr. Stone dropped his medical bag, hands up. Detective Fletcher's voice through a bullhorn. Brandon Ford, Gerald Stone. You're under arrest. Get on the ground. What? No, I'm the victim here. Well, on the ground now. All 6 men forced down, handcuffed. I opened the front door, stepped onto the porch. Chaos everywhere, officers, patrol cars, flashing lights. Fletcher approached me. Mr. Ford, are you hurt? I shook my head, couldn't speak yet. The wire got everything. Nikolai's threats, the attempted break-in, and... She glanced at Brandon being loaded into a patrol car. We found something interesting in your son's vehicle. She showed me an evidence bag, a syringe, medical labels, sedatives, strong ones. They planned to break in, sedate you, and claim you'd had a medical episode. Dr. Stone would then sign paperwork declaring you incompetent. They were going to take you somewhere. I stared at the syringe, realizing how close I'd come. The door opened behind me. Miranda and Selah. Miranda saw Brandon handcuffed. She collapsed against the doorframe, sobbing. I stood on my porch in the cold dawn air, watching them put my son in the back of a patrol car. Brandon looked back at me one last time, not with anger, not with defiance, but with something far worse, defeat. Complete, absolute, crushing defeat. The look of someone who'd finally hit rock bottom and realized there was nothing left to hold on to. Detective Fletcher touched my arm. "Mr. Ford, we need you to come to the station to give a formal statement. The recording from the wire is clear, but we need your testimony." I nodded, numb. Behind me, I heard Miranda crying, clutching Selah. Our tiny granddaughter, who'd slept through the whole thing, was starting to wake now, starting to cry. And I thought, this is what rock bottom looks like. Not just for Brandon, for all of us. 2 hours later, I sat in an interrogation room at the Seattle Police Department's East Precinct, hands wrapped around a paper cup of terrible coffee, giving my statement to Detective Fletcher. The wire device sat on the table between us, its tiny red light finally dark. It had recorded everything, every word Nikolai said, every threat, every demand. Now it was evidence in 6 criminal cases. Mr. Ford, Fletcher said, pen moving steadily across her notepad. The recording is exceptionally clear. Nikolai Petrov made explicit extortion demands, $100,000 in cash, under threat of harm to your family. He threatened you directly. He threatened your daughter-in-law. We have enough for multiple charges: extortion, conspiracy, attempted breaking and entering, witness intimidation. What about the 3 men with him, I asked. Accomplices. They're facing conspiracy, extortion, attempted breaking and entering. The younger one, the nervous one from your cameras, is already talking. Says Nikolai threatened his family to force him in. We'll verify that, but either way, they're looking at serious prison time. 5 to 10 years minimum for the associates. Nikolai's facing 20, maybe more. And Brandon? Her expression shifted, sympathy flickering beneath professionalism. Conspiracy to commit fraud, attempted kidnapping, battery with a dangerous substance, the sedative. We found the syringe in his vehicle, along with zip ties, duct tape, and a forged medical evaluation form already filled out in your name. He wasn't just planning this. He'd begun executing it. My coffee had gone cold. My hands were shaking. The Dr. Stone. Is he real? Number Gerald Stone is an actor. Community theater, a few commercials. Brandon hired him 3 weeks ago through Craigslist. Paid him $2,000 to play the role. He's cooperating in exchange for a reduced sentence. Emails, texts, coffee shop meetings, the entire plan. Says he thought it was for a YouTube prank until this morning, when he saw patrol cars and realized it wasn't. So he wasn't fully in on it. He was in on fraud and conspiracy, not violence. A desperate actor who made a terrible choice for $2,000. He'll do time, but nothing like what Brandon's facing. The door opened. Stanley Chambers stepped in, briefcase in hand, looking like he'd aged 10 years overnight. Gordon. Thank God. You okay? I nodded, unsure if it was true. Stanley looked at Fletcher. What about the emails? The ones about Miranda? Fletcher glanced at me. Miranda Ford created 3 shell entities: MBF Consulting, Cascade Holdings, Pacific Ventures. They concealed gambling losses totaling over $100,000 and discussed filing for incompetency to access Mr. Ford's assets. That's fraud, conspiracy, possibly money laundering. If we find she moved money through those entities, the charges escalate. What kind of penalties? Stanley asked. Conspiracy to commit fraud. Filing false business documents. If pursued aggressively, she'd be suspended from the bar immediately, likely permanently disbarred. Criminal penalties could range from probation to 2 years, depending on provable amounts. Would she go to prison? I asked quietly. Probably not. First offense, cooperating a 6-month-old child. A judge would likely impose probation, community service, restitution. But her legal career would be over. Stanley turned to me. Gordon, the DA, needs to know if you want to press charges. Without your cooperation, they can't pursue it fully. You're the victim. I thought about Selah, about Miranda holding her earlier that morning, genuine love in her arms, despite everything. I need time, I said. Not too much, Fletcher replied. But whatever you decide about Miranda won't affect Brandon or Nikolai. Those cases move forward. I stood. Can I go home? Yes. And Mr. Ford, what you did today was brave. That recording will put away dangerous men. You probably saved lives, including your own. Outside, it was 9 in the morning. The sun was high and indifferent. Miranda waited by her car, Selah's carrier resting on the hood. She was rocking it gently. She saw me and stood. Her face was swollen from crying makeup, smeared nothing like the composed lawyer who'd walked into my house 3 days earlier. I approached slowly. Gordon, fresh tears spilled. I'm so sorry. For the emails. For the lies. For everything. The police found them, I said. MBF Consulting. Cascade Holdings. All of it. Her legs nearly buckled. Oh, God. They're asking if I'm pressing charges. I understand if you do. I deserve it. Why Miranda, really? She wiped at her face, mascara streaking. Because I loved him. I still loved him. And I thought I could save him. If I could buy time, pay off, Nikolai Brandon would stop gambling, get help, become the man I married, the man I believed he was, by helping him steal from me. I know how it sounds. I know it was wrong. But when he was on our bathroom floor at 2 in the morning, crying, saying Nikolai would hurt him, hurt me, hurt Selah, I panicked. I thought I was protecting my family. I thought if I fixed this one thing, everything else would heal. Selah began crying in her carrier. Miranda lifted her, cradled her close. Selah quieted almost immediately. I've lost everything, Miranda whispered. My husband's going to prison. My career is finished. And your respect, I know that's gone. I watched her hold Selah. The love was real, unfiltered. You haven't lost Selah, I said. She looked up, hope flickering. I'm not pressing charges. But there are conditions. She held Selah tighter, waiting. First, you self-report everything to the Oregon State Bar. The LLCs, the emails, the incompetency plan, voluntarily. You'll likely be suspended, probably disbarred. But you'll do it with integrity before they come for you. She nodded. Second, therapy. Real therapy. For you alone. You need to understand why you confused enabling his addiction with protecting your family. Another nod. And third, you divorce Brandon. Not because I demand it, but because Selah deserves better than this cycle. She deserves a mother who knows her worth. Brandon needs to face consequences alone, without you cushioning his fall. He needs to hit bottom before he can rise. I'll do it, she whispered. All of it. And I believed her. For the first time since finding those emails, I saw genuine remorse. Not fear, not calculation, understanding. My phone rang. Unknown number. Mr. Ford, Officer Davis at King County Jail. Your son Brandon Ford is requesting visitation. Will you accept? I looked at Miranda, at Selah, at the wreckage we'd made. Yes, I said quietly, I'll accept. 5 days later, I drove to King County Jail. I delayed as long as I could, told myself I needed time to think, time to process, time to figure out what I'd say. But the truth was simpler. I didn't want to see what my son had become. Didn't want to see the orange jumpsuit, the handcuffs, the defeat. But Stanley had called this morning. Brandon's asking for you. Every day. He needs to know you're still there. So I went. The jail was south of Seattle, a squat concrete building surrounded by razor wire and security cameras. The parking lot was full of families, women with tired eyes, children clutching coloring books for fathers. They barely remembered elderly parents moving slowly toward the entrance. Inside, security protocols. Everything in my pockets into a tray. Keys, phone, wallet. Through the metal detector. Pat down. The waiting area, plastic chairs bolted to the floor. A vending machine humming in the corner. Fluorescent lights too bright overhead. Families waiting, not talking, just staring at walls or phones. A guard called out. Ford visiting Brandon Ford. I followed him down a long corridor, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead doors, with small windows showing glimpses of other worlds. The visitation room was a row of cubicles, thick glass partitions, phones on both sides. I sat at an empty station, waited. The door on the other side opened. A guard led Brandon in, orange jumpsuit, handcuffs in front, shuffling walk. He'd lost weight. Face pale, dark circles under his eyes, looking 10 years older than 5 days ago. He sat down slowly, picked up the phone on his side. I picked up mine. 30 seconds of silence. Neither of us knew where to start. You came. Brandon's voice was hoarse. I didn't think you'd come. I didn't think I would either. More silence. I'm sorry. For everything. The baptism, the money, Nikolai, trying to hurt you. You weren't just trying to take my money, Brandon. You were going to sedate me, kidnap me, lock me away somewhere and steal everything I'd built. Brandon nodded, shame written on his face like scars. I was desperate. The debt was so big and Nikolai's threats kept getting worse. I thought if I could just access your accounts, pay him off, everything would go back to normal. Your life was never normal, Brandon. It was built on lies. The office you couldn't afford. The car I was paying for. The apartment I owned. I know that now. I pulled an envelope from my jacket pocket. Divorce papers. Pushed them through the slot under the glass. Brandon opened it, pulled out the papers, stared at them for a long time. Miranda's leaving me. She already left. This is just paperwork. Does she hate me? I don't know. But she's protecting Sela. That's what matters. Sela. His voice broke. How is she? She's fine, growing, happy. She doesn't ask about you. Brandon's face completely collapsed. Could you, when she's older, could you tell her about me? Not this, not the jail, but that I wasn't always like this. That'll be Miranda's choice, not mine. Brandon signed the papers with shaking hands, pushed them back through the slot. Dad, I know this doesn't change anything. I know I don't deserve anything. But I need you to know something. What? You were right. About everything. At the baptism, when I said you didn't belong there, I was wrong. I was ashamed of the one person who never gave up on me. My throat tightened. You worked with your hands, built something real, something that mattered. And I pretended to build things while everything around me was collapsing. I never asked you to be like me. I know, but I couldn't stand feeling less than. So I pretended to be more than. And I built my whole life on pretending, until it all fell apart. The guard knocked on the clock. 5 minutes. I stood to leave. Dad, wait, please. I stopped. Phone still at my ear. Do you think someday you could forgive me? I looked at my son through the thick glass. Saw the boy I'd raised, the man I'd tried to teach, and the stranger who'd tried to destroy me. I don't know yet, Brandon. Ask me again in a year. I hung up the phone, walked away without looking back. I walked out of the jail into a gray Seattle afternoon. The divorce papers folded in my jacket pocket, signed and ready to file. When I got to my truck, my phone buzzed. Text from Miranda. Thank you for visiting him. And thank you for not pressing charges against me. I meant what I said. I'm going to make things right. For Sela, I texted back. For Sela's sake, I hope you do. Because that was the truth. I wasn't doing this for Brandon anymore. I wasn't even doing it for Miranda. I was doing it for a 6-month-old girl who deserved better than the mess her parents had made. And maybe, just maybe, I was doing it for myself too. Because holding on to anger, that's just another kind of prison. One with no parole, no second chances. Virginia used to tell me that forgiveness wasn't weakness. It was the hardest work you'd ever do. Sitting there in the parking lot, watching families walk into the jail to visit people they still loved. Despite everything, I finally understood what she meant. 18 months later, Sela was almost 2 years old. 18 months. That's how long it takes to rebuild what Brandon destroyed. Not the money, I never cared much about that. But trust. Family. The belief that blood means more than just shared DNA. You can't rush that kind of healing. You can't force it. You just have to show up day after day and do the work. The first month after everything fell apart, Miranda moved into a 1-bedroom apartment in Ballard. A walk-up with a water-stained ceiling and a radiator that clanged every morning at 5. She took a job as a paralegal assistant, making $18 an hour. I helped her move. Gene lent me his pickup. We carried boxes up 3 flights while Sela slept in her car seat. Miranda didn't say much that day, neither did I. But when we finished, she made coffee in a chipped mug and thanked me. 2 months later, Miranda called me on a Tuesday evening. She was working late and needed someone to watch Sela. I drove to Ballard and found her waiting with the diaper bag already packed. Sela reached for me and Miranda said quietly, "She needs her papa." That was the first time she used that word. Papa. Not Grandpa. Not Gordon. Papa. By the 6th month, Miranda had filed her self-report with the Washington State Bar Association. She disclosed everything: the shell companies, the emails, Brandon's gambling debts, her role in concealing them. The bar suspended her license for 2 years and required ethics courses. She texted me the decision at noon. I called her that night. She cried for 20 minutes, and I listened. When she finally stopped, I told her what Virginia used to tell me. You can't undo what's done, but you can choose what comes next. When Sela turned 1 in the 8th month, we had a small party at my house, just Miranda, Jean, Stanley, and Denise. Sela smashed a cupcake into her face and laughed until she hiccuped. Miranda brought a photo album filled with pictures from the year. There was even a photo of Brandon from a prison video call he'd been attending classes and counseling sessions inside. His sentence was 18 months with good behavior. Miranda told me he'd asked to see Sela when he was released. I didn't answer right away. I just watched my granddaughter smear frosting on her forehead and grin. 4 months after that party, Sela started walking. She took her first real steps in my living room, wobbling from the couch to the coffee table like a tiny drunk sailor. Then she looked up at me and said her first word, "Papa." Clear as a bell. Miranda cried. So did I. 2 months later, Miranda got a job offer, an associate position, at a mid-sized environmental law firm in Fremont. They were willing to hire her provisionally and wait for her license to be reinstated. She called me from the parking lot after the interview, laughing and crying at the same time. Someone believed in her enough to take a chance. A couple of months after that, I was at a construction site in Bellevue with Gene when he said, "Boss, you're smiling more." He nodded toward the crew, 60 guys working across 3 floors. "Virginia would be proud," he said. I didn't argue. Ford Construction wasn't just a business. It was proof that you could take raw materials and make something solid, something that lasts. Now, 18 months after everything collapsed, Miranda and I are sitting on the porch at my house. Selah is in the grass chasing a butterfly. The sun is warm and there's a breeze coming off Puget Sound. "Brandon's parole hearing is next month," Miranda says. I nod. I knew it was coming. He wants to see her when he gets out. I watch Selah stumble and catch herself laughing. She doesn't know yet what happened. She doesn't know her father is in prison or why I pick her up from daycare twice a week. She just knows she's loved, and that's enough for now. "What do you think?" Miranda asks. Virginia used to say that forgiveness isn't a moment, it's a process. It's 18 months of showing up. It's Miranda reporting herself to the bar and taking a job for $18 an hour. It's me driving to Ballard on Tuesday evenings to watch Selah. It's trust rebuilt one day at a time. Brandon hasn't earned that yet, but he might. "Let's talk about it," I say. The 3 of us, before we decide. She nods and I can see the relief in her face. Not because I said yes or no, but because I said we. Because she's not doing this alone. Selah runs back to us holding a dandelion she's already pulled apart. She hands me the stem and says, "Papa, look." I take it and tell her it's the most beautiful flower I've ever seen. Miranda asks quietly, "Do you think he deserves a chance?" I think about Brandon sitting across from me in that jail visiting room, looking thinner and older and more defeated than I'd ever seen him. I think about the wire recording, the emails, the shell companies, the lies. I think about Virginia and what she would say. I think Selah deserves parents who've earned the right to be in her life, I say finally. And if Brandon can do that, if he can prove he's changed, then maybe. But that's not up to me. It's up to you and him. Miranda nods. She doesn't push. She just sits there holding her coffee cup, watching her daughter. And I realize that's what 18 months looks like. Not forgiveness, not certainty. Just the beginning of a conversation we're finally ready to have. Selah climbs into my lap and yawns, her head resting against my chest. I hold her close and think about the long road ahead. The parole hearing, the supervised visits, the questions Selah will ask when she's old enough to understand. But for now, we're here, and that's enough. Selah's 2nd birthday. We decided to hold it at the Ford construction yard on a Saturday in June, sunny, warm, the kind of Seattle day that makes you forget 9 months of drizzle. Gene and I started setting up at 7 that morning. Folding tables borrowed from the church, blue and yellow balloons tied to truck mirrors, and toolboxes, bags of ice for the coolers, charcoal for the grill. At 9, Miranda arrived with Selah and a homemade cake. 3 layers of chocolate leaning slightly left with pink frosting spelling Selah too. Not perfect, but made with love. "You made this yourself?" I asked. "From scratch," Miranda said. "It's probably terrible. It's perfect." Guests started arriving around 10. Gene and his wife, Linda. Wesley and Jerome from the crew with their families. Stanley and Barbara. Detective Fletcher off duty now and a friend. Denise from accounting. 3 longtime clients with their kids. 35 people total, all real relationships, not performances. Kids ran around the trucks playing on equipment under supervision. Parents stood watching, talking, laughing. Stanley brought Selah a gift, a child-sized hard hat with Ford Construction printed on it. Fletcher brought bubbles. Selah went wild, chasing them across the yard. At 1:30, I was placing candles on the cake when I heard a truck pull in. I looked up. A pickup I didn't recognize. The driver's door opened. Brandon stepped out. My whole body went rigid. He looked different. Thinner, hair cut short, jeans and a plain t-shirt. He moved slowly, humbly. Conversation stopped. Everyone noticed. Miranda saw him instinctively picked up. Selah held her protectively. Jean stepped closer to me, silent support. Brandon walked toward us, but stopped 15 feet away. "I'm sorry," he said. Miranda said, "She said I could come, if it was okay." I studied him, saw real change, real humility. A different man than 18 months ago. "Miranda tell you the rules?" I asked. "Yes, sir. No physical contact with Selah unless Miranda approves. No promises I can't keep. No excuses. And if you tell me to leave, I leave immediately." I looked at Miranda. She nodded slightly, confirming she'd invited him. "You can stay," I said. "But understand this, you're being tested. Every minute. You understand?" "Yes, sir." Brandon stayed at the edge of the party. Didn't approach Selah or Miranda. Didn't try to insert himself into conversations. Just watched quietly. At 2:00, we gathered for cake. Selah sat in a high chair I'd built in my workshop. We sang "Happy Birthday." Selah clapped along, delighted. Miranda helped her blow out the candles. Selah got frosting everywhere, face, hands, hair. Everyone laughed and took photos. Brandon laughed too, tears visible in his eyes from across the yard. After cake, the kids went back to playing near the trucks. Selah toddled toward a pile of gravel near some equipment. Picked up a rock, smooth, gray, perfect size for toddler hands. Carried it carefully across the lot. Walked past me, past Miranda, straight to Brandon. Held up the rock. "Rock," proud voice. Brandon crouched to her level, careful not to touch. "That's a really beautiful rock." "Thank you for showing me." Selah smiled, toddled off to find another one. Brandon looked at me across the yard, silent gratitude in his eyes. I nodded once, small acknowledgement. At 4, the party wound down. Families left. Kids were tired. Sun was low. People packed up. Brandon approached me. "Thank you. For today. For letting me be here. And this doesn't fix everything, Brandon. I know, but maybe it's a start. Maybe, time will tell. I'm in an apartment in Renton. Supervised release. Working at a warehouse, loading trucks, minimum wage. It's honest work. Good. I'm going to GA meetings, 5 times a week. I have a sponsor. 90 days without gambling. 90 days is good. Keep going. I will. I have to. For Selah. Even if she never knows me, I want to be someone she could be proud of. I felt something shift slightly. Brandon left without demanding more. Miranda approached with sleeping Selah. "You gave him a chance, a small one, for Selah's sake. Virginia would be proud." I looked at my sleeping granddaughter. I hope so. Later, as I cleaned up with the sun setting, everyone gone, I thought about it all. 3 years ago, I stood outside a grand church and was told I didn't belong. 200 people in designer clothes looking at me like I was an embarrassment. Today, I stood in a construction yard surrounded by 35 people who knew exactly who I was. A man who builds things with his hands and believes in second chances. Brandon has a long road ahead, longer than 18 months. Maybe he'll make it. Maybe not. But Sela will grow up knowing that family isn't about money or status or fancy parties in hotels I can't afford. It's about showing up, doing the hard work, earning respect instead of demanding it. I'm 69 now, still running Ford Construction, still waking at 5:30 making coffee the way Virginia taught me, talking to her photo when I need wisdom I don't have. But I'm also Papa to a little girl who calls me and says, "I love you, Papa," before bed. A child who brings me rocks like they're treasures, who laughs when construction trucks beep. I'm teaching her that hard work has dignity, that mistakes can be forgiven, but trust must be rebuilt brick by brick. Miranda was right. Virginia would be proud. Not because everything's perfect, it's not. Not because everyone's healed, they aren't. But because when everything collapsed, we chose to rebuild. Together. Imperfectly, honestly. As I locked the yard gate that evening, Selah's voice echoed in my head. Papa. One word that means everything. Because respect isn't bought with $31,000 at a baptism in a grand church. It's earned with 30 years of showing up at 5:30 every morning, by being present when things get hard, by building something real with calloused hands and an honest heart. Virginia used to say that love without boundaries isn't love, it's enabling. And forgiveness without accountability isn't forgiveness, it's permission to hurt you again. So we're rebuilding, slowly, carefully, with rules, boundaries, and second chances that must be earned, not given. And that's worth more than any baptism at any grand church in the world. That's family, real family. Looking back at this family story, I realize I made mistakes I wish I could undo. I ignored the warning signs for too long. I enabled Brandon's behavior by always bailing him out, by believing that love alone could fix broken character. I confused providing for my son with actually knowing him. Don't be like me. Don't wait until your family collapses before you start asking the hard questions. Here's what I learned through this dad revenge journey, though. Revenge isn't the right word. It was never about punishment. It was about accountability. About drawing a line and saying no more. When Brandon used my construction business and my good name to fund his gambling addiction, when he tried to declare me incompetent to steal what I'd built over 45 years, I had to act. But the real lesson wasn't about stopping him. It was about what came after. This family story taught me that forgiveness and boundaries aren't opposites, they're partners. You can forgive someone and still require them to earn back trust. You can love your child fiercely and still refuse to enable their destruction. Miranda showed me that when she reported herself to the Bar Association. She chose accountability over comfort, and that choice saved her relationship with Selah and with me. I believe God puts people in our lives for a reason. Virginia was that person for me. Even 8 years after her death, her wisdom guided me through the darkest moments. She would have told me the same thing I'm telling you. Now, character isn't built in moments of ease, it's forged in crisis. How you respond when everything falls apart reveals who you really are. In my experience, the difference between a dad revenge story and a redemption story is simple. One ends in bitterness, the other in rebuilding. I chose rebuilding. Brandon still has years of proving himself ahead. Miranda has rebuilt her career from the ground up. And Selah, she's growing up surrounded by people who've learned that love means showing up, not showing off. My advice to anyone watching this family story unfold: don't let pride destroy your family. The baptism at the Grand Reserve, that $31,000 performance, was Brandon's attempt to prove he'd made it. But you can't buy respect. You earn it through consistency, honesty, and hard work. The 35 people who came to Selah's second birthday at my construction yard, they knew exactly who I was, a man with calloused hands and an honest heart. And that was enough. If you're facing something similar in your own family story, remember this: you can't control other people's choices, but you can control your response. Set boundaries. Demand accountability. Choose the hard conversations over comfortable silence. And when someone truly changes, like Brandon might be doing, give them a chance to prove it. Not because they deserve it, but because grace and accountability together create the possibility of real transformation. If this dad revenge story, or really this story of family accountability and rebuilding, resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Have you faced similar situations in your family? How did you handle it? Please share this video with someone who might need to hear this message. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel for more real stories about life, family, and the lessons we learn the hard way. Thank you for following this journey to the very end. I know it wasn't always easy to hear, but I hope it gave you something valuable, a perspective, a warning, or maybe just the comfort of knowing you're not alone in facing family crisis. And a final note: the stories on this channel, including some elements of future episodes, may contain fictionalized details constructed for educational purposes. If this type of content isn't for you, feel free to explore other videos that better suit your preferences. I appreciate your understanding.